the main source of revenue for these companies is they basically sell our data. That's how they make money to advertisers. That's the number one way that they make money.
This is real. No. That's a scam.
What is up, everyone? So today I'm going to go over why I think tech is dead. And I'm sure you all have heard about it. Last week, Facebook reported earnings, and they absolutely tanked. They were down about 20% the next day.
What?
They topped around $215 a share, and they tanked all the way down to $170 per share, and I think they even touched like $165 there, like intraday. So that was huge. And obviously Facebook is not the only tech stock out there. There's Netflix, Amazon, Google. I mean, those are the main ones. We've all heard of it. FANG is what they're labeled: Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and then Apple's even been added in there. So starting off with Facebook, they reported earnings and they tanked. And then Apple, they actually surprised to the upside, and they're the first $1 trillion market cap company. But I don't really view them technically as like a tech. I view more of like social media and more like internet-based companies as tech. Apple's more of like a hardware company, computer company. And then we have Amazon. They reported earnings pretty much in line with expectations. They were down, I think they were flat for the day, and then they went down the next week about 5% or so. So not a huge disappointment there. And then we have Netflix. They also disappointed in their growth with adding like subscribers. And they went down, I believe, around 10%. So then we have Google, which pretty much reported in line with expectations. They were down marginally the next day. So, I'm not saying that, tech is completely dead. We're going to see a huge a crash in tech stocks. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the upside from here with where tech is at and a lot of these tech stocks, just tech in general, is very limited in my opinion. We also have Twitter, which they reported and they tanked. So that's another like social media stock. So yeah, again, in my opinion, we're not going to see like a huge crash in tech stocks. Facebook was pretty overvalued in my opinion. That's why we saw such a huge decline in their share value. Also the data scandal, that's what really affected them. That was like almost 6 months ago now, maybe not quite 6 months ago. But that really didn't show up until this earnings report. So like the last earnings report, which everyone thought all that stuff was behind them, this earnings report was where we saw the slowdown. And they're seeing slowing growth in users, especially in their Facebook platform. I am a big fan of Instagram, and I mean that's a huge growth engine for them. If they didn't have Instagram, I would say yes, Facebook is pretty much dead. But Facebook is definitely more targeted towards the older demographic, and then Instagram is definitely more the younger. That's why it's growing so quickly. But they are seeing a huge increase in what they're having to spend, especially to secure the platform, make sure that these data breaches and them sharing information that they're not supposed to share happen. The upside from here is very limited. I don't think there's much, at least at this point in time, much more upside. All these tech companies, Netflix, Google, Facebook, Twitter, that depend on subscriber growth and new users, their growth is really starting to slow, and they're also having to spend a significant amount more on spending just towards like securing data and also just building out their platforms. And another huge thing to consider, this is a very big factor in my opinion on why tech is limited from here. This is really big point here. Tech to this point has been limited regulation. There's been like pretty much zero regulation around tech and Facebook, all the big tech companies. And this is really just starting, in my opinion. I think lawmakers and people in Congress are really starting to look at what these companies are doing with with our information, because this is the main source of revenue for these companies, is they basically sell our data. That's how they make money to advertisers. That's the number one way that they make money. if they take that away or make that harder with like what they can share, they're gonna see a huge slash in the revenue, because that's literally the only way that these tech companies make money. Or as far as like Facebook, Google, Netflix, not so much, because that's just purely like subscriber growth. But yeah, Google, Facebook, Twitter, all these social media companies, this is how they make money, is selling our data to advertisers and companies so they can advertise to us. And we also saw the EU slap a huge $5 billion fine to Google, because they basically breached what the EU's trust laws were with just sharing information from people in the EU that use Google. They breached their trust laws, and now they're facing a huge $5 billion fine. And yeah, like I said, I just think this is really just starting with consumers. Not so much. They really don't care. They're addicted to the platform. I think most people know, I think, that what these companies are doing with their information, they just are so addicted to it, they don't really care so much. It's more of lawmakers that I see the big impact happening. They're really starting to look at what these companies are doing with our information, and if it's ethical. My opinion is not ethical at all. You're going to see continued pressure and continued just tightening and regulations, basically, which is going to make it harder for what these companies are basically using our information for. What they are able to use is, I think, is going to be cut down a lot with new regulations. And that's just starting with, like I said, with the EU, how they fined Google $5 billion, and also with Facebook. It might take the US a while to come around, at least US lawmakers to come around, but I think they are just starting to look at this a lot more in depth. And also with the election too, I mean, that's a big thing too with Facebook. That's why they got in such big trouble. But I also want to note, there are like a lot of other tech companies out there. It's not just FANG, but those are the big ones, and that's what's driven a lot of growth in the NASDAQ especially, and even the S&P 500. You look at the top stocks in the S&P 500, and FANG is in the top 10. All those big FANG stocks are in the top 10 in the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. So if we see these start to roll over or growth start to slow, you're going to see in the overall markets, at least the indexes like S&P 500, that's also going to slow. And that's why I'm still so bullish on oil and energy and more value plays than I am in growth stocks right now. I think people are going to wake up and see that growth is really slowing, revenue is slowing in a lot of these companies. The amount of people that they can add, which has been a big engine for the growth in these stocks, is adding new users. There's only so many people out there, and they're really starting to plateau. They're going to see that and start to rotate over to more of these value plays. My favorite is oil. And like I said, there are a lot of other tech stocks out there, and in my opinion, those are just as much overvalued. But like I said, the main ones were FANG. That's what I look at mostly because they're the most heavily weighted in the S&P 500. They're the biggest companies out there. And once we see these start to go down and tank, it's going to affect the pretty much the whole market in general. And while we're on the topic of value, I do want to show you guys a chart of just how undervalued a lot of these commodity stocks are and value is in general compared to tech and growth. So I mean, the commodities index that Goldman Sachs tracks is pretty much at an all-time low. So I mean, obviously, just because something is low or historically low, it doesn't mean that it's always going to go up. But if you've seen any of my past videos, you would know that I'm very bullish on oil, and there's a lot of fundamental factors around that I believe we're going to see a huge bull run here. We've already seen oil go from 40 to 70. A lot of the equities have not really performed well relative to what oil has done, but I think that's really going to start to change here when with what happened to tech the last couple weeks. I think people are really going to start to rotate over to these value plays, and I really think this is just the start of it. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey, you. Hey, you.